I always ask people to give me suggestions for Curious People Wanted topics, and when I get them, I always try to make sure to put them into the queue. Today's topic is one of those requests. @Kisses5499 wanted me to look at the story of Shirley the Elephant and her death at Palace Theater in Waterbury, Connecticut. For those who don't know, let me fill you in. The story goes, the Palace Theater in Waterbury, Connecticut hosted a performance by Harry Houdini in 1924. As part of this act, Houdini required a trap door to be installed in the stage floor. This installation resulted in an 8 by 8 foot square, which was subsequently patched and closed after Houdini's performance. 6 years later, in 1930, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus came to town and, reportedly, brought animals, specifically elephants, to the Palace Theater. One of the elephants, a large female named Shirley, walked across the stage and, as she moved across, the patched hole broke and she fell through the stage floor. As there was no way to extract her from below the stage, she unfortunately had to be killed. Today, the Palace Theater is a very real community gem and one that is supposedly haunted. Among the friendly ghosts is Shirley the Elephant, who has reportedly been heard braying during ghost hunts. That's the story at least, so let's explore it. I'm Dr. Darren Raymond Locke, and welcome to Curious People Wanted. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The Palace Theater was built in 1922 by Italian-born sculptor turned theater impresario, Silvestro Poli. Silvestro Zeffirino Poli was born on December 31st, 1858 in Tuscany, Italy. Showing incredible artistic skill at a young age, Poli moved to Paris at the age of 13, where he became an apprentice to noted French sculptor Dublex, who was also a close friend of Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1881, Poli moved to America and began to establish himself. His first job was at a wax museum, New York's Eden Musée, which wasn't a far cry from what he had been doing in Paris. He'd been working at the Musée Grévin, where he made wax figures of historic people. By the late 1880s, some of the wax figures he created had become so successful that he entered into a partnership to open dime museums in Toronto, Canada, Rochester, New York, and Staten Island. Poli married in 1885, and in 1892, he and his growing family moved to New Haven. Silvestro opened the Poli Eden Musée before establishing Poli's Wonderland Theater in 1893. It was this theater that became the first of what was one of the largest and most successful theater chains on the East Coast. Poli's theater sprung up in working and middle-class cities with large immigrant populations like Bridgeport, Waterbury, Springfield, and Hartford in Connecticut, and Worcester in Massachusetts. Poli attracted notable stars of the day, including Harry Houdini, Sophie Tucker, Mae West, Will Rogers, Bojangles, Jack Benny, George M. Cohan, and George Burns, all of whom performed for large groups of working class. At his height, Poli owned 28 theaters, 18 of which were in Connecticut. He retired in 1929, but retained interest in his theaters until 1934. He died 3 years later. The Palace Theater remained in operation long after Poli's death and hosted performances from silent films to the Grateful Dead. It closed in 1987, but went through a $30 million renovation and reopened in 2008. It was placed on the National Register of Historic Places and maintains a mission focused on serving as an artistic, cultural, educational, and economic catalyst for the community. Okay, so what about Houdini and the elephant? I scoured newspapers and archives for mention of an elephant falling through a stage or an announcement of Houdini's appearance at the Palace Theater. I contacted Houdini experts and the Houdini Museum. I also spoke to the Palace Theater and Ringling Brothers. Both of these events would have been notable and certainly newsworthy, but I found nothing to substantiate either story. Let's start with Houdini though, who, by the way, lived in Connecticut for a short time. He had a 7-acre farm in Stamford on Weed Hill for about a year, and one of his brothers, Dr. Leopold Weiss, owned a mansion in Ridgefield where Houdini reportedly practiced some of his underwater escapes. Houdini did perform in Connecticut multiple times between 1896 and 1925. He put on multiple night shows at the Opera House in New Britain and the Auditorium, Hartford Opera House, and Parsons Theater, all of which are located in Hartford, Connecticut. Additionally, he performed at local charity benefits. On June 30th, 1917, he did an overboard box escape during a Red Cross lawn fete in Westport. And on August 15th, 1924, he performed at a Circus Big Top benefit in Southport. But nowhere did I find any indication that Houdini performed at Poli theaters in Connecticut. According to Houdini scholar John Cox, it would actually have been unusual for him to perform at Poli's theaters since they were a direct competitor to the Keith Orpheum circuit that Houdini usually toured. I should mention here that the one exception to this seems to be an appearance in 1915 when Houdini performed at a Poli theater in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Despite this, many theaters, including several in Connecticut that were Poli owned, do advertise that they hosted Houdini at some point in the early 20th century. And even more theaters claim that Houdini cut trapdoors in their stage floors. But this doesn't seem to be true. Houdini didn't use traps. He only required a small hole to be cut into the floor so water from the water torture cell could be drained. Okay, so why do people claim that Houdini came? Houdini died in 1926 at the age of 52 from acute appendicitis. In the following 2 years, his brother Hardeen began traveling around the vaudeville circuit, replicating his brother's most famous routines and performing escape acts. Newspapers published letters to Hardeen challenging him to come to cities to perform these unbelievable feats. But interestingly, at least some of these letters seem to be planted ads. There are instances where the same letter was republished in different newspapers on various letterheads of local businesses throughout Connecticut. Hardeen did appear at several of Sylvester Poli's theaters, including the Capitol Theater in Hartford and the Palace and Majestic Theaters in Bridgeport. Of his performances, at least one, an appearance at the Palace Theater in Hartford where he performed walking through a brick wall, did require a trapdoor to be installed. But I did not find anything to suggest he came to Poli's Waterbury Theater between 1924 and 1930. There were no tidbits turned up in newspapers, in the Palace Theater archives, or in any other archive for that matter. So what about Shirley the Elephant? Root Books put the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus in Waterbury on July 10th, 1930. But there were also several other circuses and Wild West shows that year. The 101 Wild West show came through the city, and the Sparks Circus set up shop in nearby towns as well. All of these circuses had wild animal performances, or at least that's what the newspaper said. The Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus advertised the day before its Waterbury tour that an elephant named Old John was one of 40 pachyderms performing. Either way, these circuses were set up in open spaces like parks, and not in enclosed spaces like theaters, which were not often equipped to handle large animals. Once again, I could not find anything in any archive stating that any elephants or other animals had been paraded across the stage in Poli's Palace Theater in Waterbury. Moreover, the Ringling Brothers archives and elephant list did not record an elephant named Shirley at that time. But where did this story come from? I have no idea. Don't know. Over time, the story about Houdini could have been an outcome of a game of telephone whereby Houdini may have been the only part remembered from the phrase Hardeen, Houdini's brother. Or more likely, during the 1920s, a large number of magicians and escape artists were touring, so it is likely that it was a completely different person who performed. For instance, one of the magicians that did play Poli's Hartford Theater in 1906 was Brenda Moore, one of Houdini's biggest rivals. Some of these other acts would be billed as greater than Houdini, with Houdini's name in bold capital letters, 3 times the size of anything else. Since the name Houdini was, and still is, so famous, it was just conflated, which sort of sucks for the other guy who was actually performing, but be that as it may. And as for Shirley and Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, perhaps it's another case of someone conflating one circus for another. I will keep digging to see if I can find anything that might substantiate this story for sure, but as of right now, the mystery will have to remain. Certainly, this story has been part of the Palace Theater's history for some time now. Longtime Palace employee Lou Belosi told this story over and over, and it is really due to his love of the Palace Theater that the theater has an archive at all. I'd like to express a special thank you to the Palace Theater and its amazing staff. Heidi and the archive staff at Ringling, Dr. Eric Colleary at the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas, and Houdini historian John Cox for all of their help in researching this topic. I'm sure I'll be back with additional questions soon, and perhaps we will find something yet. In the meantime, please like and share this video, subscribe to our channel, and feel free to comment if there is a topic you'd like me to explore more. But most importantly, remember to stay curious.